Welcome to the Income Rebellion, where we create liberating alternatives to status quo career paths by developing values-aligned income streams. My name is Chelsea Canedy, and I'll be supporting you here as you recreate your own income streams to transform your life and your legacy. Today, we are going to chat about creativity and breaking rules, which are two of my favorite things. This conversation is going to feature some conversation on robots and some conversation on one of the biggest, most historically relevant games of all time. But before we get to all of that, let's talk a little bit about you and I and the world that we live in today. We tend to think that mastery and expertise lives in following a known path. We consider what status quo approaches can give us the results that we desire, and we follow those approaches by following paths that don't always serve us. When it comes to our careers, we follow these status quo paths, and that causes us to receive status quo results. And then we wonder why we are so bored and frustrated by our lives, and why everything can feel really, really exhausting, and why we all feel a little bit jaded on what lies on the horizon. And before you consider it, no, going back to school will not resolve this. I've spoken to hundreds of people on their own professional paths and journeys and supported them in making values-aligned career decisions that honors your well-being and your overall hope and creativity and whatever work you believe you're put on this planet to do. What I believe will resolve all of these different considerations around things being boring and inauthentic when it comes to our professional paths is through taking the time to understand what it means to honor your own unique vision and voice professionally. Now, this also looks like giving yourself space to play and to uncover a creative approach to your work that only you can do, and allowing yourself to turn that approach into something that's truly magnificent and truly life-giving. In the Income Rebellion, we know there is wisdom in deviating from the status quo, and how actually deviation from the status quo is crucial to survival, both survival of our own intuition and joy and freedom, but also our survival as a species. At least that's my belief. Now, I've seen incredibly successful former 7-8-figure entrepreneurs and business owners fail and fall short in their new business because they attempt to bring outdated concepts of scarcity, lack, coercion, and fear into a new market that is now becoming more and more rooted in authenticity and truth. On the other hand, I've also seen and supported new business owners who absolutely thrive in their new business because they believe in themselves, they take imperfect action, they build powerful relationships, and they operate with a fearless persistence in terms of achieving what it is that they set out to achieve when it comes to their business. Now, after working with both of these different types of clients for about 2 years now, the key differentiating point between those who fly and those who fail is the ability to build a relationship with your creative self that is so strong, you don't really care as much about looking foolish. Now, let's jump into a little story about how robots have begun to learn this crucial skill. Just a few years ago, when artificial intelligence really started to be taken as a serious contender compared to human intelligence, a few years ago when AI was just beginning to be seen as a creative and intuitive force with critical thinking skills that are comparable to your skills and my skills. This conversation really begins, in my opinion, in 2016. Researchers at the time created an AI program that was designed to be a champion of Go, a game with a history dating back more than 4,000 years ago in China. Now, this was no ordinary feat. While researchers created simulations to beat world masters at chess, a game like chess has around 20,000 potential gameplays, and one can use any of those plays to be successful. Go, on the other hand, had almost an infinite number of different gameplays that one could use to become successful, and in many ways this was a completely different beast, because it requires a lot more complexity in order to succeed. Experts in the game approach Go as a mesh between intuition and art. You have to be able to have both to truly master the game. And like an artist's brushstroke on a canvas, the way one approaches Go is individualized and unique. The way you express yourself through Go is a meaningful reflection of your own spirit and soul. The other thing about Go is that a move you play at the beginning of the game can have a ripple effect on gameplay hours down the line, and each component of the board is a small piece of a larger story. Going even further, the intimacy of the sport lives in the relationship between the two players. It's the chattiness or lack of conversation. It's the body language and observation of a shift in facial expression when you have a severe gain or loss. Think poker face when it comes to all of this. So Lee Sedol mastered Go at a young age. While some would describe his approach as chaotic, others would acknowledge his keen sense of intuition and strategy. All people who've seen him play would agree that he was truly excellent at what he did. Now, at 33 years old, Lee Sedol was an 18 times world champion at the sport, and some would argue that he was one of the greatest known Go players of all time. A true prodigy, his expertise in the game began as a child, and it grew more and more special as time moved on. When you treat your life's work as a canvas of potential and possibility, your work does become art. And this was true for Sedol. He even mentioned a few times in an interview that I want my style of Go to be something different, something new, my own thing, something that no one has thought of before. Now, before I tell you more about the story, let me be clear. Artificial intelligence freaks me out. I don't think that feeling will ever go away, particularly as its advancement encroaches on our own uniqueness, like our likeliness and our ability to create and be paid for our work in different ways. And yes, I see the value in AI. However, I will still be critical and skeptical of these tools until I see them promote more gentleness and freedom to the world at large, which I have yet to personally see. What I do find fascinating about AI is how the mind has been studied in order to create a synthetic duplicate. The development of AI has allowed us to understand what makes the most brilliant humans brilliant. The cold and calculating nature of technology shines a light also on how that brilliance can cause us to get in our own way, how we can get in our own head, and how this can inhibit us from really tapping into change and liberation and a better world for us all. So, in some ways, this was seen in the training of AlphaGo, the AI program that set out to compete against Lee Sedol. Now, this match was expected to be an easy win for Sedol, with maybe the robot coming in to claim a single win. Approximately 80 million people sat on the edge of their seats anticipating this match. People were very curious for this man versus machine moment in history. And it's also important to note too that the AlphaGo robot took 2 years to develop using relatively simple tools compared to what we have in AI now. Researchers at the time, though, believed that it would be another 10 years of development for the robot to be able to come close to beating an expert in the game of Go due to the complexity, and some may call it magic, needed for people to be successful in that sport. So the match was a set of 5 games to be played over the course of 5 days. The first match, Sedol entered the room confidently, certain he would win against the computer with maybe a single loss. His gameplay was fast-paced and assured. He confidently moved pieces on the board. He wasn't really thinking, he was playing as himself, like this would be something that would be an easy win. Sedol lost this initial match. And when he came into game 2, you could tell that this kind of shook his confidence and kind of shook his self-esteem in some ways. When he began the next day of matches, Sedol maybe underestimated his opponent, that's what some people believed, but his way of playing was a lot different. He approached the game with a measured and slower pace compared to the day before. He was really thinking about his strategy and how he was moving each individual piece. So Go is a game where early on you can decide between two types of plays. You can either be on offense or on defense, and your early game plays determine the direction on if your game will be more of an offensive game or more of a defensive game. But usually early in the game there is a pivotal move that you can make that will shape the direction of the game to come. When it comes to opting for an offensive or defensive approach, the AlphaGo program did neither, and instead came up with a third option. Now, when this happened on the board, everyone was shocked. People looked at this program as if it made a mistake. Others laughed at the move and saw it to be as something foolish, maybe a glitch in the software. The play used something that was so rare that only 1 in 10,000 people would choose to make it. And Sedol was in so much shock from that move that he walked out of the room. Here's the thing. In more than 4,000 years of the existence of this game, not a single master has opted to play this move in this way. And this made Sedol a little frustrated and uncertain. He began to think, did this robot really gain a mastery of the game that was so grand that it could see something that the greats could not? Now, he didn't actually say these words, but this is my interpretation based off of his behaviors after. And this is also what many people in the audience began to think as they looked at this tournament and looked at what some may call a really big mistake really early on made by this software. Now, this move led to a cataclysmic series of events and to Sedol's downfall. AlphaGo won this game and also the tournament 4-5, and Sedol became the only person in human history to ever win a single game against an AI counterpart. This is important because even now, writing this in 2024, this continues to be true. No one has been able to beat the computer, unless, of course, they're using another computer, which I think some Go competitors have been able to do in more recent history. Now, when I first learned of this story, I felt heartbroken. And it's the type of heartbreak that comes with the grief of an intangible loss. It's the loss of our world's inevitable, loss of beauty and hope that in tradition that we have inherited to date. And it's a loss that's a byproduct of our inevitable growth, with the development of new technologies and the development of AI and different softwares that can become more and more like us. These feelings also felt more intense for me once I learned that Sedol actually retired from Go after this defeat. The second thought that I felt was a really deep sense of curiosity. So how can an early stage AI robot understand and excel at a game that was so innately human? How can technology be so innovative and uniquely creative beyond human imagination? And what can we learn from all of this? The moment that shook this game up the most was when the computer used an amateur move. It was then when people looked at the computer and software and saw it as a little foolish, a little uncertain, a little weird. The thing is that was the moment where the conversation shifted. And the conversation shifted because we began to realize that, hey, this computer can solve a problem that wouldn't be solved in this way if a human were to do it. So how was this creativity manufactured? The AlphaGo system taught itself how to play this game, and the researchers programmed the software after giving it hundreds of thousands of Go matches to watch, from amateur to expert. And then the software then played millions of games against itself until it became an expert in Go, until it became able to predict its likelihood of winning or losing. The software wasn't programmed by looking at literature on the game of Go or through listening to expert synthesis on the topic. The greatest tool of learning was watching, imitating, and then innovating, which, to be quite honest, is a key to success for any person who's trying to do something innovative, great, and new too. The computer was only able to be creative because it didn't play by our book of right or wrong, our status quo paths of success that experts have said can lead you to become the best. It solely took the inputs of what success could potentially look like and wrote its own path to get there. It decided its own path on what it needed to ensure its success. So I'm going to leave a link to a documentary on this whole Go story because I find it to be absolutely fascinating. You'll find it in the show notes. But let's talk a little bit about what rules you hold because you were taught they were the correct way. And when it comes to your life's work, what does it mean for you to embrace the art and beauty in what you do? I'm curious to hear, so if you like, you can leave a comment to this in this episode, but this is what this development in AI has led me to consider. Now, the place where a lot of these conversations happen is in the membership, the Income Rebellion membership. There, we come together and create values-aligned income streams that honor your creativity and your curiosity. And you also join an incredible community of people who are determined and excited and doing the same each and every day. So I think that this is really, really cool for a lot of reasons. One, because there aren't any other communities that are like this on the web today. So I feel honored to be able to hold and facilitate a space where we're looking at our life's work, our purpose. We're pairing that with really clear strategy on what it means to succeed and grow. And also, we're meeting every single week so that you can have your own specific game plan on how to make your world bigger, better, and feel a little bit more free. Not only that, but this is the founding cohort of this program. So that basically means that you get to meet each week in a group coaching environment with me and get really hands-on personalized advice and guidance for less than $1 a day. Seriously, it costs like $27 a month right now to join, and you can cancel it anytime if it's not your thing. This is really a no-brainer, and I really don't want people to miss out on it because I know this group is going to grow into something very, very cool, and I believe in helping people as much as possible in as much of an accessible way as possible. And while we're still in founder sizes, while there still is pretty small group coaching, while the price is still pretty low on this investment, I'm going to highly encourage you to jump in and meet me and let's talk every single week on how to make your most brilliant and beautiful dreams a reality. So that's all that we have for today, and I'll talk to you soon.